The town of Greenfield was quiet and ordinary, the kind of place where people rose early for farm work and shops closed before the moon was high. But at the far end of the town stood a church that never seemed to sleep, House of Fire Ministry. Every evening, long before the service began, the streets around the church overflowed with people. Some came on foot, others traveled from far towns. Mothers carried sick children, old men leaned on sticks, and merchants clutched envelopes filled with offerings. At the center of it all stood Pastor Adrian. Adrian was tall, confident, and in his early 40s. His voice was strong enough to fill a hall without a microphone, and his smile carried the kind of warmth that made strangers trust him. When he lifted his hands, the crowd roared. When he prayed, people shook with emotion. To the eyes of the public, he was a man chosen by God. And why not? The blind claimed they could see after he prayed. The lame danced after he touched them. Families testified of sudden breakthroughs after giving in his services. His ministry was famous, his offerings abundant, and his influence wide. But Adrian's story was not as it appeared. Years earlier, before his fame, he had been just another struggling preacher. His small church barely had 20 members. His prayers seemed powerless, and offerings were scarce. While other ministers grew, he remained stuck in frustration. In his desperation, he craved influence, wealth, and recognition more than the slow, quiet path of faith. One night, while alone in his little church, he whispered in anger, "God, why won't you lift me up? Why must I remain small?" That night, he made a decision that would change everything. He sought power from another source. Soon after, Adrian's ministry transformed. His sermons carried strange authority. His hands produced wonders. The crowds increased until his building could no longer contain them. But there was a cost. His power was not of God. His miracles were a blend of manipulation, tricks, and secret practices hidden from the eyes of his members. His goal was not their salvation but their money and devotion. Among the many who observed Adrian's rise was another preacher in town, Pastor Daniel. Daniel was different. In his late 30s, with gentle eyes and a calm voice, he led a small church with peeling walls and wooden benches. He was not known for wonders or wealth. His sermons were simple, but his heart was pure. His little congregation left each service with peace and encouragement, though the world hardly noticed him. Daniel first rejoiced when he heard of Adrian's growing church. But unease soon settled in. People whispered that Adrian's offerings were endless, that members sold land and property to sow seeds of faith, yet many were left broken. Then came the day an old woman named Grace entered Daniel's church. Her voice trembled as she spoke. She had been promised healing in exchange for faith offerings. She sold her small farm, gave all her money, and waited for the miracle. But nothing changed. Sick, homeless, and heartbroken, she realized she had been deceived. Tears fell as she whispered, "I believed, but I was fooled." Daniel was deeply troubled. That night he prayed earnestly, and the burden on his heart grew clear. Adrian's deception had to be exposed, not for revenge, but to free God's people from lies. The next Sunday, Daniel quietly walked into House of Fire Ministry. The hall was full, drums thundered, and the people shouted in expectation. Adrian stood tall, dressed in flowing robes, his voice rising above the crowd. "Tonight," he declared, "you will see the greatest miracle of your life." The crowd cheered wildly. A young boy was brought to the stage, introduced as blind from birth. Adrian placed his hands on the child dramatically. "Receive your sight," he cried. The boy stumbled and pretended to see, just as he had been instructed. The crowd erupted in shouts of praise. But Daniel stood to his feet. His calm voice cut through the noise. "My son, speak the truth. Can you truly see?" The boy froze. His small hands trembled. The hall grew silent. Finally, with tears streaming down his face, he whispered, "No. I was told to act as if I could see." The crowd gasped. Murmurs spread like fire. Adrian's face turned pale. Daniel stepped forward and placed his hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "The power of God does not deceive," he said. "It does not demand payment. It is pure and free." He prayed quietly, "Lord, show your people that you alone are God." The boy blinked rapidly. His eyes opened wider. Suddenly, he shouted, "I can see. I can see for real." He ran across the stage, pointing at faces and lights. The hall exploded, but this time not for Adrian. People wept, fell to their knees, and cried out to God. Others turned on Adrian, shouting, "Fraud! Liar!" In panic, he tried to defend himself, but the truth was clear. Within days, victims came forward with testimonies of deceit. Authorities investigated, and Adrian was arrested. The man once celebrated as a mighty prophet was exposed as a deceiver. Pastor Daniel did not gloat. Instead, he prayed for Adrian's soul. His small church soon filled, not because of loud miracles, but because people now hungered for the truth. They desired peace, sincerity, and the quiet but genuine presence of God. And so, Greenfield learned a lasting lesson: not everything that glitters is gold, and not every miracle comes from heaven. Glowing Star Moral Lessons. True power from God is free and pure. It cannot be bought, staged, or sold. Greed and deception may rise for a time, but truth will always prevail. We must test every spirit and every teaching, not with excitement but with discernment. God values humility and sincerity above fame and outward display. Questions for you, my viewer. What lesson did you learn from the story of Pastor Adrian and Pastor Daniel? How can we guard ourselves today from deception and false promises? Do you believe people can still tell the difference between true and false power in our world? Folded hands. If you were touched by this story, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories that reveal truth and strengthen your faith.